Welcome to the Bush League Huddle Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Raj. There's Nacc. Our third co-host, Fab, is still on vacation. Fab, we miss you. Enjoy Greece and Italy. We continue our fantasy football division previews with the NFC East. Today, we're going to go through the Eagles, the Commanders, TBD on the name, Cowboys, and Giants. Before we begin, please check out our AFC East and AFC North previews. You could also find and follow us on YouTube, Spotify, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. So it'll be the same agenda we've had over the past few episodes. We're going to do a quick breakdown of last year's record and team stats, noteworthy additions or relevant draft picks. Then we'll go through position group by position group with the QBs, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. And maybe if we have some time, talk about breakout prospects or camp players to watch. So, Nacc, without further ado, we're going to start with the world champion Philadelphia Eagles.
Champs.
So they finished 14-3, obviously culminating in the amazing Super Bowl victory against the Chiefs, obviously. So in terms of team stats, they were second in the NFL in rushing yards per game at 184. Somehow they were second with that many rushing yards, the Ravens being first. What was noteworthy was that they were 30th in the NFL in passing yards per game, but they relied so heavily on Saquon Barkley that they really didn't need to throw the ball. I would say that probably the main fantasy relevant noteworthy addition is AJ Dillon. They picked up some running back depth out of the Packers, and he supplants Kenneth Gainwell, who's with Pittsburgh now. So let's start off with the position groups in terms of the QBs with Jalen Hurts. So last 4 years, Hurts, he's been at QB9, QB2, QB3, and QB10. I would say last year he was saved by the tush push. Nacc, how are we feeling about Jalen Hurts maybe either having kind of a bounce back year on the passing front, or do we still feel like he can be relied upon despite the fact that maybe the tush push might be something that isn't as prevalent as last year?
Yeah, I don't know. I think at this point, Jalen Hurts is who he is. So I think you'll see that consistent passing and passing stats, I would say. But I'm not looking at something to jump off the page in the area of 4,000 passing yards, 30 touchdowns in the air. It's not who he is, right? We mentioned it. They're a running team. It's kind of built for that, and he's the perfect, I would say, QB for that. And again, saved by tush push, it's going to happen again, right? That play is not going away. When they get down to the one, it's automatic. He's getting the ball. They will do it 4 straight times if need be, and they will get in. So, look, QB4 seems about right for me. Definitely, top 5. But in terms of, I would say, like you said, passing yards and passing stats, I don't, he's got a floor. He's got those 20 to 25 maybe passing touchdowns a year,
Yeah.
with like 3,000 to 3,500 yards. Like it's just who that's his game, right? So I don't know. I'm not looking for a Jalen Hurts if you're looking for passing.
Jalen Hurts regular season versus Jalen Hurts playoffs. It's like, there's been so much talk about like the top 10 lists with Jalen Hurts and, people debating Hurts and Herbert. Like, Hurts is a top 10 QB, whether you like it or not. If you look at the global and totality of regular season and playoffs, when you just focus on playoffs, you can make a case he's a top 5 quarterback. So it's really crazy when you look at the kind of the splits. But I would agree with you. He is what he is. He will still have his flaws. He's not amazing in the short passing game, but he's going to be able to throw it deep. He's going to run with it, and he's a bull in terms of the red zone. So I think he's a locked in lowered QB5. I think for the next few years, honestly. Like, and as I mentioned, he's been consistently at the very least a top 10 QB year over year. So no debates on that. I do want to have a debate with you when we get to our next QB with the Commanders afterwards. But let's stay with the Eagles. Let's move to the running back position. So Saquon Barkley, an absolutely amazing overall year, 482 touches. That's the second most touches all time in a full calendar season, including regular season and
Incredible.
playoffs.
And he missed the last game.
And he missed the last game. He basically punted on breaking Eric Dickerson's record. 2,500 rushing yards, 353 receiving yards. There's been a lot of talk about his volume this offseason, the volume that he had last year. So there's this thing called the curse of 370. So it's like kind of a statistical warning sign that running backs who exceed 370 carries in a single season almost always suffer the next year. So some of the running backs who've dealt with that are Larry Johnson in 2006. He had 416 carries, 1,800 yards, only played 8 games the year after. Sean Alexander, he was the NFL MVP in 2005, 1,800 yards, 370 carries, only 896 yards afterwards. Remember DeMarco Murray's amazing year with
Yeah, that
the
was
was it with the
the
Cowboys or the
Cowboys.
the Cowboys? Yeah, he was
The
fantastic.
Cowboys. That offensive line was insane.
I think that offense line will send at least 2 or 3 Hall of Famers, right?
Yeah,
1,800 yards, 392 carries, only 702 yards the year before. And then one that is not as recent, but Dirty Bird Jamal Anderson, 410 carries, 1,800 yards for the NFC Championship Atlanta Falcons. He tore his ACL the next season. I ask you this, Nacc, how weary of this curse of 370 when it comes to Saquon Barkley as the RB1 or RB2?
I'm honestly very worried. If I'm being honest with you, look, he did get the Eagles seem to not be worried because they did give him that extension, right? Well, they added I think 2 years, and now
Yes,
he's
2
making
years.
almost 20 million a
Yeah.
year. So he got a big raise. So I don't think they're worried about it, but yeah, I think I'm worried about it. Almost 500 touches for a running back is an insane amount, and he does have that injury
Yeah.
past, right? So he's torn an ACL twice. Twice he's done it. I think back in college he did it as well. No, was it in
Good call in
college?
the college for sure. With the Giants, he's done it, and he was definitely injury prone the last like
Ankles,
year and a
ankles,
half. Yeah,
knees.
exactly.
They really like they just ran the heck out of the ball last year. Like you said, 500 touches, pretty much. Like that puts some wear on a body. And I'm not saying he's super old, but I mean that's definitely going to have some effect going into this year. I feel like I just you named some pretty good names and some pretty good running backs on that list, and a big one in Sean Alexander there, and they didn't come close to the amount of carries, right, or touches that Saquon had. I'm not ready to say, hey, he's not a top 10 running back in fantasy football. He definitely is, but I would be buyers beware of him going off
Yeah,
the board, even like top three running backs. I'd be scared to take him.
like I kind of agree with you, Knack. Like if where I'm drafting in Bush League, I don't remember where you're at, but I'm on the fourth spot, right? Like I think I'm well in play for Saquon Barkley, and I'm very worried about drafting him that high. The two things I'm looking at his game log and his stats from last year. I think one thing that maybe saves him, 70% of his rushing yards were before contact. So 1300 of his 2000 rushing yards were before contact. That's a lot of yards before contact. That means
Wow.
he's still elusive. He's still cutting guys. So he's not taking as much of a pounding at his body. And I think the AJ Dillon move actually to me shows a sign that they want another big body guy to help ease his load. I think that'll be an interesting thing to see during camp. What does Nick Sirianni say about that front? How do they use him in camp? Does Dylan play with a lot of the ones, or is he mostly with the twos? But I definitely agree with you. I'm very weary of his of that much volume last year.
I think they'd be very smart to spell him. And look, AJ Dillon, not the flashiest
At
name.
all.
Also dealt with his share of
Yeah,
injuries in Green Bay. Right, hasn't wasn't really reliable in the sense of staying on the field. But like you said, it's another bruising kind of back that can take some abuse, and yeah, they would be smart to definitely take some pressure off of Barkley, because there's no way he's going another season with 482 touches
no
and
chance.
and and being successful.
one thing's for sure, that running back room will have the best squat stats with those two quadzillas for sure. Let's move on to the wide receivers for the Eagles. So there's AJ Brown, who's WR9, currently ranked. These are the composite rankings. I should mention we're taking the composite rankings from Fantasy Pros. So AJ Brown WR9, Devonta Smith WR22. Brown lower numbers last year. He was injured, but similar per game stats as he's had over the past few years. So I think that, when you look at his raw numbers, there's a bit of cause for concern, but I think the injuries probably add up to him having lower numbers. I think he's still a stud. Does he benefit from Barkley having less touches last year? I don't know what you think about that, Nacc, but I mean, to me, AJ Brown, he's like very firmly in like WR9 to WR11 territory now at this stage of his career, especially with the Eagles.
Well, yeah, look, again, we've said it, we said it multiple times. They're a running team, right? So where you're a running team, for him to put up, like I said, he missed 4 games, right? For him to put up still 833 yards in those games, almost 70 catches and 8 touchdowns, to me, that's pretty impressive, showing, like we just said, Jalen Hurts throws the ball when he needs to, but they are a run first team and they will continue to be a run first team. So I think his numbers are, like I said, they're solid, but you're not going to get those, top five finishes with AJ Brown, not in this offense. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
he has the talent, but it's just not the offense for it.
I think in this system, like, and he's going to be with the Eagles at least for the next 2-3 years. I think he's done with the Titans type production. And then if we move quickly to Devonta Smith, WR22, I don't know, like, he's such a good player in college. Like, has he reached his peak? He just seems like he's been in perpetual WR20 to 25 territory. I often joke. I still find he's very similar to like the Jalen Waddles, and at one point he was lumped with T Higgins as well. I think T Higgins, at least from an explosive standpoint, has passed him. But have we seen the highest from the most we can from Slim Reaper? I guess it's kind of the same thing. It's a running offense, and there's just so many times that Jalen Hurts is going to throw the ball, right?
Yeah, look, and he has his games, right? He has those
Yeah,
games where he has
he
like
does.
5 catches, 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, right? Like you're going to get those games. That's when you obviously put him on your bench and you're frustrated. But um, yeah, for me, I feel like there's a lot of juice in that 20 to 25 top right receiver, even like from 20 to 30. There's a lot of juice in there and players in there that I might take a chance on and try to get that extra from. Whereas he gives you kind of a solid floor, I would say. But again, we just keep saying it
It's
over and over again:
volatility.
running team, running
Yeah,
team, running team. It's so hard to put so much stock into more guys. And like I said, they may not give Barkley 482 touches, but he's still going to get his fair
and he's
share,
going to
right?
get catches too. Like, I see Devonta Smith as he's a real life WR2, like a fantastic, really talented player.
Yeah.
And he's always ranked as a WR2, but truthfully, to me, based off his volatility, he feels like a WR3 because, to your point, like, he has his games and he has his stinkers.
Yeah.
And then quickly at the tight end position, it felt like the Eagles have been trying to either trade or get rid of Dallas Goedert, during last season, this
Dallas
offseason.
Goedert.
Yeah, go there. His production has gotten worse since 2021. At his production and with like the other weapons on the team, I mean, like we talked about it already. I mean, I think I'd rather take flyers elsewhere, like Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren, dare I say even Kyle Pitts. Like I legit, I would probably rather take a flyer on Pitts because there's just more of a potential there versus Goddard. Just seems like an afterthought in this offense.
I think 13 is really high
It's
too.
super
I
high.
find that really,
It's
really
super high.
high. Like there's guys going after him that are like I'd for sure go after before Goddard. I'm like, again, I'm trying like look at this offense really. Like there's a lot of players that are high up there in rankings, and it's just like I don't know.
It's super high. I'm not sure what fantasy analysts are thinking in terms of that composite ranking. Mind you, like again, there's way less like the tight end position. There's just less volume compared to wide receiver, running back. But I would tend to agree with you. So
And the Eagles
um,
tend to come down to earth after winning a championship, right? I think even after the last one, I don't even think they made the playoffs the year after.
the
They
Eagles,
seem to have like a hangover style in that building.
well, especially with Carson Wentz with the injury, and Nick Foles, that was like a flash in the pan type playoff run, and then
Yeah.
we saw what happened with Wentz, right? Like I think obviously Hurts has way more staying power. The offense line is still very much intact. The defense, like they know how to turn over the defense year over year with draft picks and just key signings. So I'd be shocked if the Eagles don't have another great season and potential another Super Bowl run. But speaking of teams in the FCs that had a great season, albeit shockingly, the Commanders were 12-5 last year. So they had a top five total offense. It's the most points they scored by the team since 1991, the Joe Gibbs Hog Molly days. And then Jaden Daniels totaled 570 scramble yards at 6 yards a carry. I thought that was an interesting stat to show. And just
Wow.
overall, as a rookie of the year, he was an amazing revelation. In terms of key noteworthy additions, we have most notably Debo Samuel and Laramie Tunsil. Obviously, Samuel added some juice to a wide receiver core that desperately needed it, and Laramie Tunsil, they needed to shore up that left tackle spot. I think another interesting aspect is just what's going to happen with Terry McLaurin. We'll talk about him when we move to the wide receiver core. So I teased it a little bit, Knack, when we talked about the Eagles. Jaden Daniels is very firmly entrenched as the QB3. You are a little bit of the kind of rookie or QB sophomore slump whisperer. How are you feeling about Jaden Daniels' potential sophomore slumps? Are you that high in him on QB3, or would you rather take a flyer, or not take a flyer, but go with the more proven Jalen Hurts?
The only thing that doesn't make me compare this to a Stroud year two is that Stroud didn't have any of that rushing upside, right? Whereas obviously Jaden Daniels does. But again,
Mm.
to your point, it's year two. The hype is gone. Now there's more tape on you. There's that teams had a whole off season to kind of scheme against you. Can he do this again? That's the real question, and it's definitely going to be answered very shortly. But if I had to pick, if I was picking, let's say in a two QB league like ours, and usually the top three guys more often than not are QBs, unless Roger picks in the top three. Um, this year, obviously, it'll be again Josh Allen, and then you have that maybe Lamar Jackson, and then you get to, do I take Hurts, Burrow, or Daniels? And it's like, man, we just talked about it. I think I'd rather go with Hurts because he's more cemented and he's more seasoned. You know what you're going to get from him. He just won a Super Bowl. Burrow, again, I'm not
Love
sure,
Burrow,
but
man.
it's so tough with these sophomore guys, just because, like I said, there's just tape is being studied for a whole off season, and it's tough for a rookie to come back and do that again. So, if you're asking me, do I trust him at that top three position? I don't know, probably not. I would look to not even want, like I might even change my course and do like you and take the wide
Trade out.
receiver or the running back, or exactly, if you do trades on draft day, trade out of that spot, because you're going to see him there at three, and everyone, I would say 9 out of 10 people are going to want to grab him, and it's just, again, he could be that generational talent, but I feel like there is some risk involved.
And great points. I know we always talk about Stroud, but there's also Love, right? Like Love theoretically last year was his sophomore
True,
season, and
true.
we saw how he struggled, right? And the things that worry me about Daniels a little bit are, look, the stats were a bit inflated from a passing standpoint. It was a ton of quick passing to kind of get him in rhythm early on, and then eventually the deep passing came on. He takes a lot of hits. He doesn't protect himself very well. He's a tough guy, but he's very slender.
Hmm.
And I think, again, to your point, it's just another off season. It's more time for defensive coordinators to look at them. So like I would tend to agree with you. I would probably personally, I'm just a big Joe Burrow fan. I would love to own Joe Burrow, whether it's 2 QB league or other QB or 1 QB league as well. But yeah, it'll be interesting for a lot of people who are in that position, especially in Superflex and 2 QB, whether or not they go with Jaden Daniels or Hurts or a
And
Burrow.
not for nothing, but I think this is the year that you're taking Joe Burrow in that three spot. And only because now even Hendrickson is not even
Mm,
reporting to camp. They didn't come to an agreement. Who do they have on that defense? Who are they stopping? Burrow is literally going to have to put up 40 points a game if he wants to win because that defense is getting shredded every Sunday.
yeah, my argument that they got a new defensive coordinator, they make some changes schematically. Like it's not going to hold it in weight if they just don't have players, right? So it's
Yeah.
to your point, it's going to be bombs weight because they're going to keep being behind. We'll move on to the running backs now. I don't want to spend too much time on. To me, this might be the worst fantasy running back position group in the league. Brian Robinson Jr. RB 30, Austin Eckler RB 43. There was some buzz around. I think his name is Jordan Krosky Merritt. He had a pretty good rookie 1 year at Arizona, but then he was ineligible afterwards. So there's been some buzz about watching him at camp. Backfield to absolutely avoid. Just not a fun backfield to own.
Look, you're getting pretty good value, I would say, on Brian Robertson Jr. at RB 30. However,
He's a flex. He's a
you're still
flex.
well,
He's
but
a
you're
flex.
still getting a starting running back on a team, right? So, or sometimes like those running backs are like he's running back 30 doesn't mean like this is a guy you're probably going to get in the ninth, 10th round of drafts. If you're talking about running back 30, like getting a starting running back at the ninth or 10th round is pretty difficult when it comes to fantasy football.
My issue with that is that he's lumped with Caleb Johnson, Travis Etienne, Najee Harris.
Yeah,
So TBD on that with his eye, Tyrone Tracy, Ramondre Stevenson. I want all of those guys over Brian Johnson Jr. Brian Robinson Jr. I think there's more upside with like a Caleb Johnson.
those
There's more
guys are
ups.
going after him.
They're going after
Wow.
like Tracy, and we're gonna talk about Tracy afterwards with the Giants, but even Javonte Williams, we'll talk about him right after as we're going to talk about the Cowboys. But to me, he's just a depth piece, and he's the type of guy. To your point, yes, you have a starter, but you can't rely on when he's
No.
going to actually have his main game, especially with Eckler there. Eckler is there as a third down back, and he could still rush a little bit. Chris Rodriguez is there. There was Jeremy McNichols. He was spelled too, and it just feels like the way Robinson plays, he does get injured quite a bit. He's a tough inside the tackles runner. For me, it's a backfield to avoid totally, in my opinion.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think I was trying. I was looking at that as the half glass half full
yeah,
aspect, and like looking at it again, I think
he's depth.
you're probably right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's bye week filler to me.
yeah.
Um, More concerning for the Commanders is the wide receiver position. So Terry McLaurin right now being ranked at WR 13. The Commanders opened camp today. Terry McLaurin was not there. McLaurin has been a model citizen for the Commanders year in and year out. He stuck with them and was a professional when they didn't have Jaden Daniels. They had a barren list of quarterbacks, and right now he just wants to get paid. Probably around the Jalen Waddle, T Higgins maybe area, which I think he deserves after the
DK
year he had.
Metcalf.
DK Metcalf, that's a great point. So I looked when it's not hard to look back at last year, right? Some of the WR wide receiver holdouts we had. There was Brendan Ayuk. There was CeeDee Lamb. They finished below expectations. Nacc, are you worried about Terry McLaurin if, let's say, by mid-August he's still holding out?
Yes, I would, and you have a we just mentioned it a QB going into his second season. You want all the reps you can with your number one target, right? And if a guy like CeeDee Lamb could come in and struggle after putting up WR1 numbers, overall numbers, the previous year, and he can come in and struggle with all of the time he had with Dak as well in previous years, right? We're not talking he had Dak for one season.
Yeah, that's a great
So
point.
now we're talking he had Jaden Daniels for 1 year on a rookie, as a rookie QB. I think you want the like you want the most out of this. You want as many reps as possible. So again, you just alluded to two pretty good wide receivers in this league, and I think I would agree if he misses lots of time come August, and he doesn't even miss. He comes in, he signs right before the year, 0 reps, 0 nothing. I think it does hurt his value quite a bit.
And there's been other ones too. There's been Michael Thomas, Debo Samuel with the Niners, Antonio Brown with the Raiders. That was a funny one. Even if McLaurin is back early, there's cause for concern for his numbers: 82 catches, 1,096 yards. The 13 TDs were a big outlier. He's only done so. 2019 he had 7 touchdowns, but every other year up until 2023 he didn't have more than 5.
He's not had
So
very many good
a
QBs back
hundred,
there, right?
100%, 100%. I fully agree with you. Just I'm, and maybe the next, you go to the next point, which is Debo Samuel. Debo Samuel at WR41. I have been a big, I've been quite critical on owning Debo Samuel. I don't think it's a very good move. He's always injured, but at WR41, that is amazing, amazing value. And he has the QB who can throw short passing game. He has the offensive coordinator who leverages crossing routes so that he could run run with the ball. Looks like he's healthy. Looks like he lost weight. And if you think of WR41, he's nestled with Michael Pittman Jr. at 40, Jordan Addison at 42, Jacoby Myers at 43, who we all like. Even Ricky Purcell, his teammate at 44. So I know about UNAC, but I quite like Debo Samuel at WR41.
Yeah, but that number of 41 could potentially change, right? Could probably
with
get closer to that
with
wide
McLaurin.
receiver 30 with McLaurin dipping. Maybe McLaurin goes down to wide receiver 20 or 22, and then Samuel jumps close to him at like, wide receiver 30, 32. So then you're getting a little bit higher up on a list here where I like him a little bit less, because when McLaurin does come back, he might struggle at the beginning of the year, right? Like that's where the struggles will happen, weeks 1 to maybe 6. You're starting to get your groove in, you're
Yeah.
starting to get more practices in, but after that, it should be, if Daniels is playing like Jaden Daniels, then McLaurin, like, don't get me wrong, his floor is not going to be 13 touchdowns. That's for sure. But a healthy Terry McLaurin could easily get you 7, 8 for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, absolutely. And then other wide receivers is they got Noah Brown, who's always been a really solid depth player. He had a really good, I would say, good solid WR3 within the Texans team a few years ago. Jalen Lane is the name to watch. He was a rookie at Virginia Tech, 4.34 speed, 40-inch
Yeah.
vertical, 11-foot broad jump. Extremely impressive athlete. And then I'm curious to see if they could get anything out of Christian McCaffrey's brother, Luke McCaffrey, in his second season with the Commanders. Finally, at tight end, Zach Ertz, such a solid player last year. I think he finished around the mid tier for tight ends. 66 catches, 654 yards, 7 touchdowns. His most touchdowns since 2018 when he was with the Eagles. So he's getting up there in age, and I know they drafted Ben Sinnott out of tight end U Iowa recently. So it'll be interesting to see how they factor in those two players there. But I think Ertz is to me. I'd rather take Ertz than Goddard as an
100%.
example. Yeah,
That was going to be my point. I'm going to be
yeah.
like, I, he's rated in the 20s, right?
He's right now he's tight end 16
Or
Ertz.
16.
So
Okay.
that's perfect to me. He's right before. I mean, Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland will get to Indianapolis and Chicago at some point, but I think those, especially Loveland, there could be some high upside depending, considering how Ben Johnson uses tight ends. But I think 16 is like the kind of the high upper limit or high lower limit, however you want to say it, for Zach Ertz in the tight end spectrum.
Yeah.
That'll do it for the Commanders. Moving on to America's favorite team, the team that everyone likes talking about, the team that I see on Twitter virtually since the first 2 days of training camp, ESPN, the Dallas Cowboys. They finished 7-10 last year. Somehow they were 10th in yards per game despite Dak being out around midseason. Where they really struggled was in the rushing game. They were 27th in rushing yards per game. We do know Rico Dowdle came on late in the season, but it felt like it was a little too late. And then they got rid of him, which we'll talk about a little bit afterwards. George Pickens, obviously dynamic new wide receiver to pair with CeeDee Lamb. Lamb's been needing a WR2 next to him for a very long time. And then they picked up at the running back positions Javonte Williams from the Broncos, Miles Sanders from the Panthers, and Jaden Blue from Texas, which has typically been a running back factory. And then they drafted Tyler Booker to replace Zach Martin on the offensive line. Nacc, there's been a lot of Dak MVP buzz today on social media.
What?
Once you, yeah. So you were visiting the zoo with your kids. Great father you are. While I was during my work break looking at some training camp videos, there's been training camp videos of Dak Prescott looking happy. George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb looking happy. The vibes look good in Dallas. And then one nice throw, and then a few NFL and fantasy analysts are like, Dak Prescott MVP season? Look, the case is when Prescott has been fully healthy, which is in 2021 and 2023, he was the QB6 and QB3. He's coming to camp the best shape of his life. What say you about Dak Prescott's MVP case and top 5 fantasy QB case?
July 22nd, people. I just want to remind everyone listening, we are recording this on July 22nd, and we've already heard Dak for MVP. Oh my God, it's the end of the world, man. I don't know. The media just loves this circus surrounding the Cowboys. The other day it was, Jerry Jones again, diarrhea of the mouth, saying something he probably shouldn't say. Look, a healthy Dak does put up solid fantasy points. So I think I was a component of one of the guys who were saying that Dak can push 4 top 5 QB numbers. I believe I've said this a few weeks back on one of our episodes. He could definitely push for top 5 numbers. He does now have, we just mentioned, another receiver for to throw to besides CeeDee Lamb. They've been searching for a WR2 for a long time. The Tolberts and the who was the guy last year that you really didn't
Turpin.
like? Oh, Cooks also.
Turpin. I like Tober was not bad. There was the Turpin as well.
Yeah, but they were just never that guy, right?
Yeah.
So, look, we always say it, the best ability is reliability, right? So if he plays 17 games, I have no doubt that he can put up those fantasy top 5 numbers. Now, as to the MVP of the league, I don't see it. There's just way too many guys ahead of him right now that I would take that could potentially win an MVP that I'm calling it right now. There's no shot. No shot.
Fantasy Pros has Anthony Richardson ahead of Dak Prescott in terms of their rankings. That is absolutely insane.
What is Dak Prescott rated?
21st. He's QB 21.
Wow.
Dak Prescott is QB
21. That's too low.
Dak Prescott is QB 21, and then you have JJ McCarthy right after, Tua right after, Michael Penix Jr., Bryce Young, Geno Smith.
Who are the 3-4 ahead of him?
There's Matthew Stafford at 18, Jordan Love at 19, Anthony Richardson at 20, and then Caleb Williams at 17. Even Trevor Lawrence.
How is Anthony Richardson a top 20 fantasy option right now?
When he's not even
going to start the season.
He's not even going to start the season. And what's interesting is the always the thing with Dak is you really don't get any rushing upside.
No.
The year I faced you in the Bush League huddle finals, I had Dak. I believe I had Dak. You had Josh Allen.
And I had
Like
CeeDee Lamb.
it's yeah, exactly. It's like, and he had a great year. Just like at the end, it just tailed off. I don't know. It's really the injury. If you could tell me Dak Prescott will play 100% of his games, I have no problem taking that QB 21 value. But as it is now, being snake bitten, I had him back to back years. I remember I doubled down on Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb last year because I took CeeDee Lamb. I'm like, I'm gonna have the stack, and it was
Yeah.
an absolute disaster. So the last question I'll pose to you, and I think you've talked about this in our podcast. Joe Milton is QB 45. Would you be more comfortable taking Dak Prescott and then making sure you have Joe Milton, considering the arm he has, the weapons, how he looked against the Chargers? I think it was the Chargers or the Bills in the last game. I don't remember who they played in the last game of the season, but he looked apparently he not apparently he really looked good. Is that
So
something that would keep?
this,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, sorry, no, I didn't mean to cut you off, but yeah, this would require me to have four QBs on my roster. However, right, this is one of those strategies where you take your three QBs and then you grab one of his backup QBs. So you know, for whatever reason it happens, obviously you try to be strategic and get the most injury prone one. Um,
Because Cooper Rush was he was
Great, serviceable, exactly.
very
Yeah,
serviceable for
yeah,
people who lost Dak last year.
yeah. Like I said, again, I would have to see how my board breaks, and it would probably have to be my last pick in the draft. I would say to go that far. But yeah, you just with the injury history, it's you almost have to do it if you draft
Yeah,
Dak. I feel
yeah.
I don't think you have a choice really.
It's going to be interesting discussion all throughout camp, all throughout preseason with the Cowboys. It's already starting as you said, January 22nd, MVP talks,
July,
Dak
July,
Prescott.
July.
January, oh my god. I'm already ending the season. I'm already ending the Cowboys season, and I'm clairvoyant, and the Cowboys
See,
again
that makes
finish.
more sense. If someone told me July 22nd, the Cowboys have mathematically been eliminated from the playoffs, that would make a little bit more sense to me.
Let's move on to a running back room that makes absolutely no sense in my opinion. So we talked about the ending that Rico Dowdle had. He was on fire. He looked really good against the Steelers. He looked good in a lot of other games, I believe, against the Eagles and the Panthers too. And then they just let him go. And instead, they replaced him with Javonte Williams, who is currently ranked RB 37, Miles Sanders, RB 63, Jaden Blue, who they drafted in the late rounds of the 2025 NFL draft. So for me, Javonte Williams, it feels like he's just been 2 years away from being 2 years away.
Yeah,
Meaning, like, it's enough with the excuses about the ACL. He had the ACL in 2022. Okay, you give him a pass in 2023. He couldn't fully beat out Audric Estime last year. He couldn't fully beat out Jaleel McLaughlin. 3.6 and 3.7 yards per carry the last 2 years. And then you have Miles Sanders, who was RB 10 back in 2022, with the caveat being it's the Eagles' freaking O line. You
yeah,
and me could be RB 5 in the Eagles' freaking O line, running behind Jordan Mailata and all those guys, and so Lane Johnson, Jason
he had
Kelsey.
Kelsey there. Yeah,
He had Kelsey too, and then there's Jaden Blue, Texas running back. So running back factory. Looks like an all-purpose menace. I think there's an opportunity at camp for him to make a name for himself. What the hell are you doing with this running back room, Nacc? Like,
they literally traded. Well, not even because if I would say I was going to use the expression, they traded four quarters for $1, but I think Rico Dowdle looks better than anything that they have on the roster currently. Where Jaden Blue might have that upside, and I feel like second half of the year the backfield is his.
yeah,
Like with Javonte Williams going to like figure it out just like that, and Miles Sanders is not going to stub his toe when he gets out of bed in the morning, and like I'm so curious as to why this happened, because it's not like Rico Dowdle got paid all that much, you know. Like I know that the Cowboys were strapped for money and for cap. They still haven't paid Mika Parsons as well,
Like a yeah,
so I thought maybe that's what they were doing, is try to go for like a cheaper option in the backfield, draft a nice rookie. But Dowdle didn't get all that much. Where'd he go? Dowdle went to
Panthers. Oh,
Panthers.
sorry,
That's
no,
right.
no. He went to the Panthers with Chuba
Panthers.
Hubbard.
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
yep.
I'm just totally confused as to what they're doing there. You can look. It's Jerry's world, right? Yeah, Jerry does what he wants, and I can't make sense of it. I'm honestly lost for words on this one. I'm not sure where to go with this backfield. This is another one. We mentioned the
The
Commanders
Commanders.
having the worst one. This is a pretty close second.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we're going to talk about the Giants even too. It's afterwards, but so Javonte Williams 1 year deal, 1.5 million base salary. Miles Sanders 1 year deal, 1.3 million, 1.17 base salary. Those guys, I think what they're going to just going to use those two guys, see what they have out of them, see if maybe one of them breaks out, and then they'll figure it out next year. The thing with that is that it's two injury prone guys, right? So you're gonna be like, hey, let's you guys just bang your heads to it. We don't really care. 1 year deals for you guys. Two guys who are very injury prone. Jaden Blue is gonna come out of it, I think. So I agree with you.
Where was he drafted? Fifth round.
Blue, I think it was like the 5th round. Yeah,
Because
and
I'm
not
just
like
like
a
in my head, I'm just laughing because he might be making more money than both of them.
yeah, not far. 840,000
There you go.
base salary. Like
Yeah, that
he's
fifth
really
round,
not that far.
it's a
Yeah,
bit low, but
and in the 5th round. So,
yeah.
to me, another backfield to avoid. I don't know what to do on that front with that one. We'll move on to the wide receivers, fully entrenched as a top 3 wide receiver, CeeDee Lamb, and then George Pickens at WR37. I want to start with CeeDee Lamb. Are we sure Lamb is the bona fide WR2 in fantasy to start the season?
It's tough, man. It's super tough. I know we're gonna get into Jamar Chase. Actually, no, we got into Jamar
Yeah, we got
Chase
yeah.
last week. Excuse me, and how to be weary about that. WR1 overall again. Then you have Lamb, and then you have Jefferson. Right, in my eyes, like these are the three that kind of gel. Again, it's going to depend on the reliability of Dak Prescott, right? If you're talking to me today, again, July 22nd, where Dak is considered MVP, I will take Lamb. I will take Lamb at wide receiver 2, max 3. I think he's still got the talent there, and honestly, with Pickens there now, I think things open up for him as well,
Mm-hmm.
because you
Totally.
can't just leave Pickens one on one, right? We all seen that he may not be able to separate, but he can make contested catches.
Totally. So you look at year over year, 2023, when CeeDee had his All Pro year. Just
Yeah.
some of the differences. He went down a little bit in yards per reception. He had 6 fewer TDs. He had 12 in 2023, 6 in 2024. I think the big thing was just the yards per game, 102, 103 yards per game in 2023, only 80 in 2024. How much of that is Dak? A lot. How much is that? How much of that is the training camp holdout? A little bit. How much of that is the injury? He only missed 2 games, but there was some games where he was toughing out at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So if you factor in no camp holdout, Dak coming back fully healthy, you have to factor that in. Hopefully no injury. I like him. I think I like him a little bit more over JJ as the WR2. JJ, yeah, JJ Justin Jefferson, because of JJ McCarthy and
Right.
him being a rookie, not being sure what that situation is going to look like. JJ McCarthy, not really used to throwing a ton in college. They're going to rely on the running game, I think, a little bit.
Good point.
Um, Yeah. And then you have George Pickens at WR37, which to me, and George Pickens more than anyone, Knack. That seems like good value. He's nestled in around Calvin Ridley, who's at WR36, Pickens 37, Diggs 38, Roman Dunze 39, and then we start to talk about some of the guys we mentioned around the Debo Samuel area. But I think this is a prime opportunity for Pickens to really make out, considering having a bona fide WR1 next to him.
And he's in a contract year.
Mm.
So Mans wants to get paid for
Yep.
sure. I said that as white as possible right there. Wow, that was very bad. That was very bad. For those of you listening on Spotify, I am white, but that confirmed it. Mans wants to get paid. That was good. I'm trying not to laugh a little bit more in my head. Um, Great value. Yeah, no, but seriously, he is in a contract year. Purposely did not sign a contract extension. Not that I don't even think the Cowboys can afford him.
So you think it's a
I
rent?
don't.
You think it's a rental?
Yeah, it has to be. It
Mm.
has to be. Look, if Parsons is going to get over what TJ Watt got, which is 41, so he's probably going to get what 41.5 or 42. You're paying Lamb close to that 35 million. You're paying Dak 60. Like you can't pay another receiver 30. It's impossible. Um, so I think yeah, great value at 37. And like I said, he's going to get less double coverage than he did last year. That's for sure. And as I mentioned, he's not a great separator, but he makes those contested catches. Um,
He's gonna get the team's second best cornerback.
yeah,
He's gonna be off. He's gonna be like he's not gonna have any press coverage. CeeDee Lamb plays a lot at the line. He plays a lot at the slot. Pickens is mostly gonna be probably on the other side, on the weak side, where he's off. He's off the line, right? So imagine Pickens with his speed off the line. I saw a clip on Twitter today saying that the Cowboys are running way already in camp. They're running way more motion than they've had in the past. Um, Mike McCarthy is known to not run a lot of motion, so it looks like they're going to try to be a bit more creative this year. So, I mean, I've typically been someone who's not a big fan of George Pickens, but this is a prime situation for him. I think he's going to have a. I think both of them could have a monster season, but again, we've said it like so many times now. It's all dependent on Dak's health
and his MVP journey.
and his MVP journey. Indeed. Lastly, Jake Ferguson, tight end 10. Bit of a down year. In 2023, he was 71 catches, 761 yards, 5 TDs. Went down considerably. Again, Dak was out. A lot of turmoil with the team. No touchdowns, though, and only 500 yards. He's, as mentioned, tight end 10. So he's around the, David Njoku, Mark Andrews, just before him, and then Tucker Kraft and Jonnu Smith. I definitely take him over Tucker Kraft. If I think he's going to have the type of 2023 season that he's had before, I think I probably like Jonnu Smith a little bit more. And then we talk about Zach Ertz. I like him. I like Ferguson more than Dallas Goedert. But it's interesting. It's almost like just the CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens makes Ferguson a little bit more weary to take.
That's what I'm saying. I'm out on John Jake Ferguson. I think this year he came on in that like you said that 2023 year, but like there was something up, right? Like CeeDee Lamb did well, he did well. Like it was just like everything clicked for the Cowboys. How often does everything click for the Cowboys? Not very often, right? So, and I think you made up a good point. They finally have that bona fide WR2 on the roster, so he's definitely going to take a hit. So I see more of those numbers, those right around that 80 to 90 targets, 60 catches, hovering on that 500 yards. But I'd give him maybe a couple, 2, 3 touchdowns this year as well. I doubt he goes with a goose egg, but
And quickly before we move on to the Giants, just to go quickly back to the running backs, Javonte Williams still had 52 catches last year for the Broncos. So
that's Sean Payton offense, though.
that's Sean Payton. Yeah, you're right. That's Sean Payton. Well, actually, even his rookie year, he had 43 catches, and I don't think Payton was there in 2021. So it's just Javonte's. He could catch the ball. We'll see if maybe that has an impact on the guys who catch the ball more in the intermediate short passing game. But
Rookie QB as well. A lot of dump
yeah,
offs last year.
you're right. That's a fair point. But I think overall for the Cowboys, vibes look good in camp. Dak healthy, Pickens and CeeDee look super
Curious,
motivated.
curious to see them two together, and like when one of them doesn't get the ball and the other one gets the ball. I'm curious to see how it looks.
They're all saying the right things. Schottenheimer was saying he's overjoyed to have both of them. They're all saying the right things, but yeah, let's see how after week one, after the the first game against the Eagles, the first game against the Giants, how they fare on that front. Last but not least, we have my and Fab's 4-13 New York Giants. A
Thank
brutal
God he's not
season
here.
a brutal season that should have culminated in having the number one pick. Unfortunately, the Giants have no clue how to tank. They couldn't help themselves. So they ended still. Hey, look, still ended up with what's his name again? Carter. My God, I'm drawing a blank. Abdul Carter. Thank you, Abdul Carter. Great pickup, and then they ended up with Jackson Dart late in the first round. If you look at
Love
their
that
team
name.
stats, 2024, 22nd in rushing yards per game. That sort of went up a little bit more when Tyrone Tracy Jr. took over the running back reins. 28th in passing yards per game. The passing offense was an absolute disaster, be it with Daniel Jones, be it with Tommy DeVito, be it with Drew Lock. Some of the noteworthy additions are, as mentioned, Jackson Dart. There's also Cam Scadaboo that they drafted in the fourth round. And then there's Winston, and Russell Winston as well.
Wilson.
Russell Winston.
Russell
This,
Wilson.
this podcast is going long for us. There's a lot of Winston and
You're
Wilsons.
uh, you're 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 taking a Fab spot right now. You're doing an homage to Fab. I love it. We love you, Fab.
Miss you, Fab. So QBs. So we have Russell Wilson, who looks like the presumptive starter. He is at QB 30 in the Fantasy Pros rankings. Strangely enough, Jackson Dart is at QB 35, ahead of Jameis Winston, who's at QB 43. I guess that factors in some dynasty. I guess there's factoring in that maybe there's a chance that Dart starts later in the season. I want to talk about the QBs and the wide receivers together, Nacc. The reason being is that I'm going to jump to the wide receivers right away, and then we could have a full discussion. For me, Malik Nabers at WR7 right now, to me, is fully entrenched as the kind of best of the tier 2 wide receivers. And by tier 2 wide receiver, I mean the guys after Chase, Lamb, Jefferson, Puka Nakua, and I also had Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think Nabers is better than Thomas. I think he's better than Nico Collins. I think he's better than AJ Brown. Who is the best quarterback to make sure that we unlock Malik Nabers and he continues to ascend and have a better season than last year?
Jameis Winston.
I'm very happy you said that.
I don't like Jameis Winston, but
Oh, we know.
yeah, I just I can't. I just can't stand him. The people love him, and that's their prerogative. But I can't stomach Jameis Winston. But look, we saw what Russell Wilson was, and you know what? He played for my Steelers last year, and I had to take some sort of blinders off because you made me notice that literally it's moonball or bust with Russell Wilson. And
Yeah.
literally, after you told me that, I literally sat down, watched the game, and that's exactly what it was. He's not that, you know, dart and go Neighbors. That's not what type of player he is. He's more refined. He's a
Yes.
guy who could, kind of throw him the
Yak.
ball. He's a great route runner.
Yeah. Yeah. Ton of yak too.
He's not a go ball guy. He'll catch
He can't.
that
Yeah.
long ball. He could catch it. Don't get me wrong, but he's not the guy that's you pick last in gym class and like give me go long every single time, right? Like that's not the type of player that he is. So in order for I feel like Neighbors to have his full potential, Jameis Winston has to be throwing him the ball.
It's a fantastic analysis, and I agree fully. I'm honestly, when we signed Winston, we were talking about it in our 3-person group chat with Fab. I was super ecstatic. Then when we signed Wilson, I was why? What is
Yeah,
the purpose?
yeah.
Like, yes, he's a fake good leader. He smiles for the camera, he kisses babies. That stuff is fine and dandy. It's great, but
Kisses babies.
like it literally, like literally, he's a great person. Like, and listening to him in the Pat McAfee interview is actually, it was very endearing. It made me see a different side of him. Maybe he's not as fake as you think he is, but from a football perspective, he is way past his prime. He is not running like he used to. He is not creating out of schedule like he used to. As you mentioned, it's moonball or check down. It's check down to touchdown with him. And I just am worried that he's not going to unlock Malik Nabers like we think he can be unlocked. And we talked about it last week in the AFC North episode how Jameis Winston unlocked Jerry Jeudy. They looked really good together. He even unlocked Cedric Tillman a little bit until Winston was injured, right? So
And
um,
Judy's got that pretty good route running ability as well, like
he's
that
a
we're speaking of
yes.
as with Malik Neighbors, So
Say what you will about Winston, when he's not throwing it to the other team, he could get yardage. He's just a yard getter for himself and for wide receivers. He just flat out. You can't deny it.
look, the issue here is he obviously throws it a lot of times to the opposite team. But in this situation, wouldn't you want to develop Malik Neighbors more? Like, think about it. You weren't a Russell Wilson away from winning a Super Bowl
Thank you.
or contending,
Thank
right?
you.
So that's where my head goes, and I guess that's where your head went as
Yeah.
well. Is when you
You
signed
see,
Jameis, I guess they took him as insurance if they weren't going to land Dart, right? Because they did this before the draft, if I'm not
yeah.
mistaken, right? This was
Well,
way before the
yeah.
draft. Both of
Well,
them were
it was
signed before the
Shador at
draft.
first. It was
Yes,
yeah, and like
exactly.
trying to
So
trade up for Cam Ward.
so that's what I'm saying. I think that's what happened is they went for the insurance factor and said, you know what, if we get there was all these people talking, like you said, Shador, there was people talking about how the Steelers are going to leapfrog and how they were
Milrow.
going to go after for this, but and it was just like there was so much chatter out there that they felt, you know what, like let's sign Russell Wilson. If we can't get a QB in this draft, well, the tank is, I guess, kind of on, but I'm not sure where. I'm just what I'm confused about is what direction is
The
it they're going
division.
at? Are they trying to win games? Are they trying to be 500? Are they trying to go back to being 4-13? It was just strange from what the other pieces they had around
Yeah.
them.
And last thing on this, and I guess we'll move on to the running backs if you don't have anything else. But I'll be really interesting to read the camp reports from Giants beat writers, because to me, I'm gonna call BS if they say that Russell Wilson is the best QB in camp, because I'm gonna be curious, like what is that based out of? Is he looking, is he looking at receivers over the middle? Is he look, if is he going through his reads? He's going through his progressions, because he hasn't done that in 3 years. He didn't do that in Denver. He didn't do that with the Steelers with you guys. Sure as hell ain't gonna do that with the Giants. So uh, to me,
Maybe
it's gonna happen. I know he's gonna start, but I'm gonna call BS on it, and I think there's other factors to if Wilson starts over Winston, and I don't. The last thing, I don't want to see Dart this year. I
that's
don't want
where
to see.
you see, like that's where I think, like if Wilson does go down or he plays poorly and it's like week 8 and they're 2-6 or something, I think they try Dart before they put Winston in there. Like Winston's that good backup guy. If he has to come in mid game,
You
he can finish
think
out a game, he can clean out a game. Oh yeah.
I
I
would
think
go?
they're
I would
for
go
sure
Wilson.
gonna want to see what Jackson Dart has, because if for whatever reason they tumble and they fall, right? Let's say they finish 2-15 and they get the first overall pick. There's going to be a Nussmeyer available.
That's a good
There's going to
point.
be they're going to
Lenore
Arizona
Seller. This.
Cardinals it, right? Like just because they took Dart, well, look, Russell Wilson's out of the picture next year, right? It was a 1-year deal.
Mm,
Jameis Winston easily cut if need be, and now you have a Nussmeyer and Dart in camp, kind of muscling it out. Like you don't know if for what happens at that juncture. Like people could say, hey, if Dart wasn't good, I'm going to pick a QB, and like they
That's
probably should, right?
I didn't think of that. I think that's a fantastic point. And there's Nussmeyer from LSU. There's this Lenore Sellers from the South Carolina. Apparently, he's going to be really good. Drew
Yeah.
Aller as well. So
Like
there's
why? What are
yeah,
you losing out? Like why wait on Dart? Like let's see what this kid got, because
yeah.
or else we've got to pivot and pick another position, right?
That's a great point. Good discussion on the QBs nestled with the wide. I mean, the other wide receivers, Wandale Robinson, Darius Slayton. They're like in the WR60s, WR70s. I hope we could get to see something out of Jalen Hyatt this year.
Yeah, I think
But
this is it for
nothing.
him though.
Sorry.
This is like last chance here. I
It
feel.
is. It is, and it hasn't been great in terms of just overall, not just production, but I think attitude as well. There's been some stuff around that. The running backs, Tyrone Tracy. I thought it was interesting that Tyrone Tracy Jr. was ranked by Fantasy Pros as RB 34, and Cam Skadebu at RB 38. There's a 4 player gap between Tracy, who I thought was, I think we all thought he was quite good last year, although struggled with fumbles, and then Skadebu, who was picked in the 4th round, but is there some limitations with him as a player? Tracy, we talked a little bit about him when we were talking about some of the other running backs, but at RB 34, Travis Etienne Jr. and Najee Harris are ranked just above him. And then after him are Ramondre Stevenson at 35, Tank Bigsby at 36, Javante at 37, Skydebu at 38. So this is kind of like the backup running back territory. Another one to avoid, Nacc.
I'm not going to say completely avoid. Singletary being still on this team still to me is
Mm,
kind of confusing as well. I'm
yeah.
not sure as to why. Um, Look, Scatterbo, I think, is going to get a lot of short yardage work, so that means most likely, touchdowns inside the 5 or inside the 10. And the problem with Tracy is now that there's Scatterbo kind of like creeping and creeping down his neck, one fumble and like they're not going to stand for it, right? Like they saw how many times he fumbled last year. How big is the leash on
Mm,
Tracy being your lead back? Like again, we just spoke about it. It's not a season where they were, a player away from contending, and I don't think themselves they think they can contend. So, but they don't want to be sloppy, right? Like they're not
yeah.
going to start a guy who's fumbling the ball, here and there. It's just not going to work. So I'm worried about the leash he has with the fumbling issues.
And to your point, and I think it applies to the QBs, Brian Dable and Joe Shane this is make or break for them. They need to win this year.
Yep.
They absolutely need to win. So to that point, I don't think they're going to want to be sloppy with the team. And I think the interesting aspect about Scadabu is he had about almost 60 catches last year at Arizona State. He doesn't have the frame of someone that you think could catch the ball a lot,
Mm-hmm.
but he did. So to me, I think it's one I probably avoid. Probably a lean towards Scadabu as maybe a like take a flyer on him. But it's this division doesn't have great running back rooms, to be honest. Aside from the Eagles,
Aside from the
obviously,
Eagles, yeah.
it's really slim pickings. And then finally, Theo Johnson at tight end. I thought it was notable. I looked at his game log. Came along quite a bit after week 4. He had about 5 or 6 games of above 3 catches, and most of those games he was above 30 yards. Some of them he was above 50 yards as well. So they didn't bring back Bellinger. They didn't add anyone else at that tight end room. I don't believe they did. Could be an interesting guy to watch, not only at camp but as like a really take a flyer on a tight end if you're one of those who doesn't want to spend much on that position.
The only thing where I would interject on this is again the QB throwing him the ball. Fryermuth was supposed to be a high end option and did not have a great year last year, fantasy relevance, and Russell Wilson was throwing him the ball.
My God, I don't understand why they signed him. It's I feel if he plays, I am gonna be so frustrated. I was frustrated for you watching. I watched
Well, he's going to play.
we watched a lot of
He's going to start.
Steelers.
Maybe you'll get lucky. Have a sled accident like he did
Yeah.
last year before camp started.
Like, just that's all you need to know about Russell Wilson. The freaking QB doing sled. Like, give me a break, dude. Like, that's for show. Um, that'll do it for today's episode on the NFC East Fantasy Preview. You could check out our AFC East and AFC North Fantasy Previews as well. As always, you could follow us on YouTube, Spotify, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Apple, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. On behalf of Nacc, I'm Raj, and catch us next week as we preview the NFC North. Till we meet next time.
Hey, you want to know what the MVP odds are on Dak Prescott? 33-1. I
I'm
had to scroll. I
I'm
had to
putting money.
scroll heavily to find those
I'm
bad
putting money.
boys.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
I
put
put a
money
hundred
on it.
bucks. I put a hundred
I'm
bucks.
putting money on it. I'm waiting for your goodbye.
Goodbye.
Peace.